In a wealthy family where everything shines with opulence, Nora, a humble and quiet girl, keeps a big secret. No one knows that she is not only the daughter of the Ashcraft-Oft family, but also the owner of a powerful real estate empire, quietly holding the fate of the entire family in her hands. A seemingly ordinary party will change everything when secrets are uncovered and the truth is revealed. Nora Ashcraft-Oft, though born into a prestigious and wealthy family, always lived a simple and reserved life. She was never the type to seek the spotlight, never craved attention or the extravagant lifestyle that defined many members of her family. On the surface, she appeared to be a modest girl living in the shadows of the legacy her family had built. She cherished peace and quiet, preferring a life of freedom unbound by the expectations of high society. But there was one thing no one in the Ashcraft-Oft family knew. Nora wasn't just the daughter of a rich and powerful household, she was the one holding the key to everything. From a young age, Nora had always been different from the other children in the family. She wasn't drawn to luxury items or lavish parties. Instead, she found solace in books and long, quiet walks through the family's gardens. She never quite fit in with the way her family lived, and that made others view her as an outsider. Yet behind that humble exterior, Nora harbored a secret no one could ever have imagined. When the Ashcraft-Oft family faced a severe financial crisis brought on by the poor decisions of other members, Nora turned out to be the only one capable of saving them. In truth, she had built a powerful real estate empire from a young age, thanks to her foresight and decisiveness qualities few ever noticed. The secret deals she had made over the years had turned her into one of the most influential figures in the industry, even though no one in her own family knew about it. At a major family gathering where all eyes were on the flashy accomplishments of the Ashcraft-Oft lineage, Nora decided to reveal a piece of the truth. The schemes, the hidden realities behind the glamorous lives of her relatives were about to be exposed, and the once overlooked Nora would no longer remain in the background. She was no longer the girl obscured by the presence of others. She was the one who held the real power, and the only one who could determine the family's future. At that moment, she stood at a crossroads. Would she continue to keep her secret or allow those around her to see the full picture? Could she save her family from the threats looming over them, or would she let everything fall apart? A life that once seemed quiet and unassuming now faced its greatest challenge, and Nora was the only one who could make the final call. That evening, which appeared so ordinary, would not only change Nora's life, it would alter the entire fate of the Ashcraft-Oft family. The truth would come to light, and in that moment, everyone would realize just how wrong they had been to overlook where the real strength had always been. The grand party at the Ashcraft-Oft estate had quietly transformed into an invisible battlefield, one that few could perceive. The loud praises, the sparkling eyes filled with pride over the family's surface-level success, were nothing more than a facade. Nora sat quietly in the vast hall, a growing sense of unease building inside her. She looked around at her relatives, each of them wearing a perfect mask. Her father, Andrew Ashcraft-Oft, a successful but relentlessly ambitious man, always buried in never-ending business affairs. Her mother, Margaret, a woman who maintained an elegant exterior, yet in truth was cold and unreadable. Nora's younger siblings sparkled in their own right, yet lacked the depth and quiet strength that she carried within herself. The shining stars of the Ashcraft-Oft family had always been those who sought society's approval, but Nora never needed that. Her life was freedom wrapped in discretion. Still, it was precisely this silence and humility that her family could never understand. They had always seen her as the naive one detached from the family's affairs until the truth came to light. What they didn't know was that behind the scenes, Nora had been the very force sustaining the success they so proudly paraded. After witnessing the luxury her family continued to indulge in, Nora could no longer remain silent. The truth was, she held the most crucial decisions in her hands, and the time had come to finally assert her power. She alone understood the depth of the crisis the family was facing. Her parents' and relatives' poor choices had led them into chaos, and without her intervention, financial disaster could strike at any moment. With unwavering determination, Nora decided to lift the veil. The party intended to celebrate the Ashcraft-Oft family's prosperity suddenly became the stage for her to reveal her greatest secret. She spoke out in front of the crowd about the secret investments she had made over the years, the financial strategies she had quietly overseen, and the deals that had kept the family afloat during times of hidden turmoil. Her words silenced the room. No one could believe what they were hearing. The girl they thought lived in the shadows had in truth built an empire of power and influence right under their noses. From that moment on, Nora Ashcraft-Oft's life would never be the same. Eyes that once overlooked her now turned toward her with awe and perhaps shame. Her family began to understand that without her silent contributions, none of their current status would exist. They had spent too long basking in glamour, unaware that the real catalyst for their survival had been beside them all along. Now, with strength and poise, Nora faced a new decision: would she continue to live in the shadows or step fully into the light, ready to face the immense challenges ahead, where truth would be the only guide through inevitable change? That night was more than a shift in the Ashcraft-Oft household. It marked a turning point in Nora's own life. A revolution not just within her family but within herself, as she chose to break free from the image and legacy others had built for her and finally embrace her own. Since the tumultuous night of the Ashcraft-Oft estate party, everything had changed. Nora Ashcraft-Oft, once seen as merely a shadow within the family, now stood firm as an irreplaceable pillar of the family's financial foundation. She was no longer just a quiet operator behind the scenes. She held the key to their future. But with that powerful rise came a new battle, one unfolding deep within her own heart. Part of her felt pride for finally raising her voice, yet another part was filled with confusion and fear. For every decision she made from now on would no longer impact just her life, but also the lives of those she loved. The Ashcraft-Oft family, especially her parents and close relatives, were stunned when they learned of the strategies Nora had quietly implemented over the years. They had never truly understood her, never believed she was capable of anything so significant. To them, she had always been the gentle, inexperienced daughter forever living in the family's shadow. Soon, criticism began to surface. Despite all she had done to protect and support them, she received little recognition. Instead, they felt betrayed, unable to accept the truth that Nora alone had shifted the power dynamic they once believed solely belonged to them. But the war Nora now faced wasn't just with her family. It was an inner struggle of staggering weight. She began to question whether everything she had done was worth the sacrifices. Should she continue down the path she had chosen, or try to free herself from the burden she had built on her own shoulders? Surrounded by expectations, suspicion, and emotional distance, Nora found herself standing at a crossroads. One path would mean continuing to carry the invisible weight of saving the family, an endless duty with no reward. The other promised freedom, a chance to step out of the shadows and craft a life entirely her own. Her love and loyalty to her family had always been her deepest motivation and the reason she never gave up. But she could no longer ignore the reality every poor decision her loved ones had made was bringing the family closer to ruin. And Nora, with her inner strength and sharp understanding of financial risk, had made bold choices, despite having to bear the loneliness and doubt of those she cared for most. The truth was out now, and Nora had to face the consequences. Could she maintain the same resilience and clarity in the face of what lay ahead, or would she ultimately be crushed under the pressure of family expectations and societal norms? One thing was certain: the next chapter of this story would not just be Nora's battle for control, it would be her battle with herself. A test between staying to protect a family that never truly saw her or choosing freedom and finally claiming the identity she had always hidden. Nora Ashcraftoff's story had moved beyond a family turning point. It now posed bigger questions about power, freedom, and the meaning of love. She was no longer the quiet girl in the shadows. She had become a woman carrying immense power and responsibility. And from this moment on, she would no longer be fighting only for her family, but for the freedom and the unspoken dreams that had lived quietly within her all along. After confronting the division within her family and challenging herself to the core, Nora realized that her journey was no longer just about winning or losing control over the family's financial power. In truth, she was undergoing a profound inner revolution. The family bonds once built on love and duty were now riddled with doubt and discord. This forced Nora to reassess her goals and ideals. Could she continue on this path without losing herself and the values she had long held dear? Deep down, Nora understood that changing the fate of her family and protecting what she had built couldn't be achieved through financial leverage or clever strategies alone. She came to see that beyond all external relationships, it was the genuine connection and trust among family members that would ultimately help her overcome this challenge. It wasn't enough to prove she could lead, she needed to convince them of the sincerity behind her actions and choices. The tension between Nora and her family created emotional waves that crashed through her mind. On many sleepless nights, she reflected on everything that had happened, on the relationships that had changed, and the uncertain future she was trying to shape. Although loneliness and insecurity often crept in, each hardship gradually revealed the hidden strength within her. The awareness of what she had once overlooked now became the fuel that kept her moving forward. And then one day, as she stood before the mirror and looked into her own eyes, Nora came to a powerful realization. This battle was never about proving herself right or wrong to her family. It was about affirming to herself that she was worthy of what she had achieved and of what she was striving to build. That confidence didn't come from power or status, but from the unwavering belief in the human values she had always cherished: love, honesty, and the ability to rise despite adversity. This shift in Nora's perspective began to ripple outward, touching those around her. Her family gradually started to see that instead of resisting and doubting each other, they needed to understand and support one another for the sake of their stability and the shared values they hoped to preserve. With that, Nora no longer had to shoulder the burden alone. She began to see that sometimes the greatest strength doesn't come from strategy or finances, but from unity and love, from forming real connections with those who matter most. This was the defining turning point in the story of Nora Ashcraftoff. From a girl who once lived in her family's shadow, she had grown into a woman standing tall on her own. She didn't just transform her family, she transformed herself. Nora had become not only a capable leader, but also a woman of immense inner strength. Someone who knew how to love and to sacrifice, who appreciated what she had and honored the journey that led her to where she stood. Nora Ashcraftoff was no longer a silent figure in the background of her family's story. She had become a symbol of resilience, reinvention, and hope for anyone willing to face life's trials in pursuit of truth and personal freedom. What she had learned was more than just a lesson for her family. It was a message for anyone seeking change in their own life. After overcoming the crises within her family and finding inner peace, Nora began to see something she had never truly realized before. Life wasn't just about maintaining power or protecting what one already had. What mattered far more was how she rebuilt trust with those around her, how she restored and nurtured her family relationships, and most importantly, how she learned the lesson of letting go. Letting go wasn't a sign of failure, it was a mark of growth. Letting go to preserve what truly mattered, not wealth or power, but love, understanding, and the human values she had long fought to protect. Nora realized that when people focus too much on goals and strategies, they can lose their way along the journey. For a long time, she had tried to preserve her family's image, even at the cost of sacrificing essential things to maintain a false sense of stability. But now, after all the challenges and losses, she finally understood that what mattered most wasn't perfection. It was acceptance and the ability to grow from one's mistakes. In the months that followed, Nora spent more time in reflection, seeking to restore balance within her soul. She began reconnecting with her family, but this time in an entirely different way. No longer was she the rigid Nora who relied solely on logic and inner strength. She became a woman who opened her heart, who listened more, who sought to understand rather than control. She knew that a family could only be strong when every member was united, when differences were accepted, and when people were willing to truly hear each other. Through this process, Nora began to see a profound transformation within herself. She no longer felt the pressure to please everyone or to prove that she was right. Instead, she started making decisions based on what she truly believed in and loved. The freedom she found was not a freedom from external obligations, but a freedom within, a release from fear, from societal expectations, and from the need for constant validation. With her deepened understanding of love, patience, and empathy, Nora slowly became a figure not only respected by others, but also someone they could learn from. Her family began to notice the change in her, and over time they realized that fighting for one's own interests wasn't always the answer. Sometimes opening up and sharing honestly could help a family weather the greatest of storms. From then on, Nora Ashcraft was no longer a leader known only for her authority. She became a symbol of transformation and renewal. She understood that helping others, not just in business, but in their personal lives, was the true foundation for lasting happiness and sustainability. Nora's journey from a young woman burdened by family pressures and internal crises to a confident, mature, and fulfilled individual was proof of the strength that comes when we are willing to look within and embrace change with an open heart. Now looking back, Nora wasn't just proud of what she had accomplished, she felt grateful for the challenges that had come her way. Those trials didn't just help her grow, they opened a new path for her entire family. In a world full of conflict and difficulty, Nora understood that only patience, love, and mutual acceptance could bring things back to where they belonged, and that was the most valuable lesson she had learned and shared with the people she loved.